So what I've been doing is I've been doing stuff that usually I have done already, but there's always a reason, right? So I see Mahata that you guys haven't punched your holes. Yeah. Do you have this piece?
Can't hear you.
Yeah, the mic's.
I'll unmute you.
Okay.
We do have this piece.
Okay, so do you have anything to punch the holes?
Yeah, Haley's doing that right now while I'm cutting some more lacing.
Okay, good. So she knows how to punch the holes then, how it works and that?
I don't know.
Kind of. Yeah.
Okay, so
kind of.
I'm gonna run through this for you, Haley.
Okay.
You can just watch for a second and I will direct you because I've already punched them. I wasn't gonna do this because I usually have this all done when I'm selling kits, but you can see that I punched holes, right?
Yeah.
And how I do that is I go like this and without any holes, right? I put it in half.
Yeah.
Right? And then this edge where I punched in half, right? You can't really, it's hard to see it on here. So what I'm doing is I punched a hole that looks like right here. So it's about a 1/2 inch. I take it and I go to the other side, right, like this, and I punch a hole in this side. I punch a hole in this side. And then what I can do, this is the easiest, so you get the right amount of holes. So then I just put it in half here and I match those holes with these holes. And then I punch the holes on this corner and this corner. And then now I've got 4 sets of holes across from each other. And so then what I do is I start matching up those holes, right? You know, the ones from here and the ones from here. I flip it over and I do those holes. And then the same thing on the other side over here. So then once you've got 8 sets of holes, right? The cross way and that way, and then everyone in between, then it's super easy because then you just take it and here's a set of holes and here's a set of holes. So then I just match this hole up, and sometimes your piece isn't exactly round. So just make sure you match this hole here.
Okay.
Right? And then you punch that hole, and then you'll have a set in between, and then you just go to the next set and do the same thing all the way around. So eventually what you'll have is 16 holes, sets of holes. Does that clear the mud?
Yeah, it's clear. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I guess that's why I never punched them. So you needed to know.
Thank you.
So once you have that, then you need this. So see, I've got the frame here. What I'm doing is I'm doing a 12-inch frame. So this will be my giveaway. We're going to be doing a sort of a draw register. And so what I'm doing, see how this is? It's actually going to get bigger because it's going to stretch, right? So it's going to be all of this. And it's going to be out to right here. So you need something. If you want it smaller and more of the lacing showing on the inside, you make this smaller. Okay?
So is that just a piece of lacing that you've tied together?
Yeah. And so what I do, if you don't have a punch, do you have a punch?
Yeah.
So you punch a hole in one side and then you tie a knot, a couple of knots, and usually just also including that. I noticed I didn't include it on this side. So I tie a knot and then what I do is I do my best to capture that hole punching, because sometimes you'll rip it, right? If you're tightening too hard. So it's kind of like the thing that you need to do. You need to make sure that you listen, because what happens is when we, one moment, I just have to get you to turn that off. It's kind of distracting. Oh. Okay, so what I have to do is, like, if you're pulling too much on certain things, right, what happens is you snap like this, or you'll snap some of the other strings. So it's like there's certain ways to tie this, and then that's what we want to do, right? We want to listen and pull on each thing the way that it needs to be pulled on. Okay? So this, you can make it smaller. You'll see how this is in here. Once it stretches out, there's not going to be much room. I might have it this far, but you might want to have a smaller inner circle and more lacing. So then you just make this piece smaller. It's totally up to you what you want to do.
Thank you.
It'll all be in the kits when I make a kit, right? If you know anybody that wants to do that, I'll have the kits made and then they can watch. So all of this stuff will be made. Okay? Clear as mud. All right, so now I'm going to show you how to lace this up. And if you do this right, we think we need lots and lots of lacing, right? But it's not really that much. And we have, if it looks like you're running out, just know that there's actually lots on here. And I'll show you once we start to do the work. So you want to kind of have your lacing out. And so what we're going to do, we've got the sets of holes. I'm going to show you in the front because you won't be able to see it in the back, but I always work back here. So what we're going to do, you've got two sets of holes here. You can kind of see, you'll see more when I'm over here. So I can't work over that way. It's not, it doesn't work for me. So what I'm doing is I'm going down every set of hole. There's like a right set, a right hole and a left hole. So what I'm doing is I'm going down in the right hole and I'm going to pull this right through. Most important, I never, ever let this go, right? Some people put it through the hole and then throw it. Then they got to go, for every hole, they got to go find it. So I've always got it in my hand.
And ladies, if you want to watch any particular, because you have two cameras going, if you're familiar with Zoom, it's pretty easy. You can just pin the video that you want to see.
Okay, so here I am. I've got it down into one hole. So this is the story, right? We're going down into the underworld on the right, and then we're coming up on the left. We want to come up on that side. So always down through the right, right down, and left up. And I want to hold on to this. And I move the frame aside, which I never do, but I need to show you what's going on here. So there we are. Now we've got this laced up on this side like this. So this is what you should have, right? And this is what it looks like on the other side. And so the most important thing is with the frame, there's a rounded edge here, and then there's a flat edge. You want to make sure the rounded edge is down. And you always want to have your frame stay in the middle. So you'll notice as I'm working, I'm not moving this around or picking this up or anything like that. I'm just slowly moving it. I don't know if we want to move this camera
That's what I'm doing.
on this. This guy is the best. He's in my thoughts, which could be kind of scary. You just don't want to be there. Okay.
All I can say is I'm flattered.
Okay. Yeah. I can kind of work this way better. Okay, so now I've got this down in the right hole, up in the left hole, and I'm going into this thing here. So I know this might sound long and boring, but you know what? It's like once you start your drum, because I've always like just worked with everybody. And then what happens is a lot of people get caught up and, you know, one's ahead of the other one and stuff like that. So I decided last time, before I even knew that we were going to do this, that I'm going to do a demonstration of the drum and put it all together so that everybody knows what to do. So then again, when we're going into the center, what we're doing is we're going in and under this round part. So again, we're going down into the underworld and coming back out into the center. And then we're going to move on to our next holes. And because I like to work over the edge, right? I go down in the right hole. I just move it off the edge a little bit. And one other thing I do, I'm not pulling this tight. Right, so my thing is to leave this really, really loose. Because if I pulled it all the way over here, then it's already to right here. And then this, I'd have to have a bigger farther. So I want to keep it all centered. So when I start buttoning it up, that it's all going to be in the center. So again, I've gone down in the right side of the hole. And now I've never dropped this. Right? I'm going to come up on the left. So it's all one pattern, up, down, and then up. And it kind of could get twisted up, right? So you can kind of untwist it a bit along the way, but I wouldn't get too worried about it because the first time around, what we're doing is we're just lacing it up. But if it's really twisted, then you'll want to untwist it a bit. And then I always center my skin again with the frame. With that, and then come back up again. If you want to come over and like see, or you're good, I'm going to be helping you. But sometimes it's just easier to see a couple of times. At least listening is good. So there I am, right? And this is all loose. We want to leave it to about the same looseness, right? All the way around. And as we start to button it up, it's going to be better. So again, down on the right side. You know, and however we are when we're doing our drums, you know, this is the same way as Sundance, right? So I kind of refer to like coming into the center, right? So in the center, we have a tree, right? So however you're doing this, if you're frustrated, that's why we like to clear emotions, right? If you're panicking and hurrying, just remember that's how your time for the next year is going to go forward. So I always say there's no race. Everybody gets done when they get done. There's no mistakes. If something happens, then that's okay. That's there to learn from. How are you as a problem solver? Do you get all frustrated? Are you looking at the problem all the time? Or do you look at the solution? What's the solution? And yes, I know I just dropped my string, but I also want to, I'm getting it kind of twisted up in the game here. So I wanted to drop it and straighten out the twists. And now I can drop it again. So always when I'm coming to the center, it's always under the hoop, back over. And then on the edge again, it's in the right and it goes down. Always making sure that the frame is in the center of the skin. You know, and if things get pulled off, like this thing here is getting pulled off to the side, all I have to do is just fix it all again before I move along, right? I don't have to worry about anything, and I can loosen that back off. And then I'm coming up on the left again. This is the first time we've ever filmed this, so it's kind of fun. Big thanks to Mark for doing all this work. So here again, we've come up on the left, and now we're coming to the center, and we want to go into the hoop. And if it pulls off like that, not to worry, right? We can just straighten it out just like that. Very simple. And just slowly move your drum and your frame, your skin around. Notice I'm leaving it on the table Because if I started picking it up, then everything's a mess. I don't know how people do that, but I've seen it, and I'm like, yeah, once you pick it up, it's like really less than easy because everything starts to move all over the place. So when you leave it flat, you can always just leave everything centered. Everything's good. And it's new moon energy, right? So what is it that you want in your life? New moon is the best part. A lot of people want to do full moon ceremonies, and that's really good too, right? Me, I like the new moon because it's like the darkest time, and then you're coming into the light. So it's a good time to make goals, do vision boards, make a drum. Yeah, beautiful. And then back in again, underneath. And back on.
Can I have two questions?
Yeah.
What do you have there?
Oh, this is the
And
water.
What is the string?
So this is the lacing, and it all comes in a big hide. This is part of the hide. So I just cut out the circles, and then I cut this lacing up myself, right? I used to buy it, but then some of it's too thin and then it breaks. So I'm just like, for now on, I'm just cutting my own lacing. So all I've done is cut this out of there. It's just one big hide. And so you have to soak all this stuff in water, you know, at least for 24 hours. Thicker hides like buffalo or moose or something like that needs to be longer because it's thicker. But deer like this or elk, it soaks pretty fast. Good question. Thank you. Yeah, and if you're soaking it, you want to make sure that, you know, everything's in there, right? Sometimes I put it in the tub, right? But my daughter doesn't like that. So yeah, that doesn't happen too often. So I had to find a bin that's big enough. And if you are going to soak it in the tub because you don't have a bin, best to make sure you wash your tub out first, right? Because everything's like sacred, right?
That was me.
Yeah.
You're back.
Everything's sacred. Even I went into the dark there for a little bit, right? We were going down in the underworld. So there it is. I'm on down into the right hole, up into the left. So again, down in the underworld over there, and then back up. Never again letting go of this little beginning part, because otherwise you'd see me disappear off camera to go pick up my piece. So always I'm making sure this is in the center, everything's centered. And now I'm going down into the right hole again. And it's great. Everything's loose. Everything's, you know, centered. That's the most important thing that you can do. And as you pull it and it gets, oh, I got some trippy stuff going on. It's psychedelic drum making. I like it.
My goal is to see if I can get it to focus a little with your movement. The autofocus is
Going all over the place, eh?
not the end of the world.
No. Okay, so I went in under the hoop again, making sure that everything's centered. If you fail to center all this, when you start to get it buttoned up more around here, what happens now is you have to move everything around and get everything, pull it back. And if you're not noticing that, then one side of your drum is like on the frame over here and the other side's up over here. So, you know, there is no good, bad, right, or wrong. Maybe that's just a little bit of the way that your life is, right? Maybe it's a little off centered, and that's okay too. There's never nothing to worry about, right? Everything's perfect. And so again, up on the left side,
Just careful.
yeah. And so then I'm going back into the center, underneath, always underneath. sometimes you end up with a one on top or whatever, and it's like, you can fix it if you want to go back once you've noticed it, right? But it's a lot of work, right? I just like, okay, whatever, that's, if somebody's done that, sometimes I make them fix it, and sometimes I'm like, oh, well, if you're right at the end, then, maybe that is the way it is for you, right? Nothing is perfect. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So there we are, we're coming back on the left, we're halfway done. The lacing up is the biggest part. Then we just slowly 4 times, because everything's done in 4s, 4 times. And what we're going to do is just slowly tighten every time, a little bit more. So again, into the underworld, we're going under the hoop, coming back, leaving lots of slack, right? And then back into the right hole on the outside. And then back into the left, coming up on the left, right down, left up. Always remember that, and stay within your hole patterns. There's patterns of 2 holes every time you punched, or you can see it if you bought a kit, you can see that that's the way it is. Keep working within those 2 holes. And then let it go again, because I want to take the twists out of it. So here we go.
Can you make more holes, or that's a number that you should have as a whole?
Yeah, there's a reason for the 16 holes, just like a sweat lodge. People can do them differently. Depends on how you want to tie them, right? I can show you, like I'm going to be videotaping this more often, and you'll be able to see the different types. But for right now, this is kind of what we're working with. Is this time, it's just going to be like, this is how, like a Sundance, like, because, so we go into that down on the right, because that's why you Sundance, right? It's like a Native American ceremony. It's like going into that darkness, going into the underworld, going into the spirit world, picking up that medicine and then coming back up, right? And so going down on the right, you can look at that like, well, that's your masculine, that right. And then we come up on the left side, which is the feminine, right? Come back out of that underworld in a softer way, so you can be softer in this world. However you want to look at that, whatever you want to read into that. I don't know, people can read their own things. I'm just like, that's kind of how I feel. And as we're coming up and we're going over again and into the center, it's like we always come to the tree, because that's where we're creating from. We're going to the tree for our power. And so we go to the center, get that power from the tree, and then back into down on the right again, down into the underworld, and back up again. I'm going to be doing a series of different ways to tie the drums, and they'll all be giveaways, and you can register to win. Mark's going to be showing where that is, and we'll have it up on Morningstar Transformations pretty soon, how you can win this drum. And I'll be making a drumstick, but not on video today. So yeah. See, when you get too twisted up, then it's just good to let it go and straighten that out. Because then it's not all twisted.
When you hear giveaway, that's what you do.
Woo-hoo! Yeah, especially if you win. And you never know. I did a drum workshop up in Conklin, and my friend there that I had just met, he gave me the Morningstar name. And he told me about, having a dream that Elvis taught him how to play guitar. And so when he woke up, there was a pick on the floor, and he never had a guitar. The pick shouldn't have been there. And so we went to do the drum workshop, and they had a guitar that was a raffle, right? And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna get some raffle tickets. Maybe if I win, I'll give it to him, right? And so I went to buy a raffle ticket, and all I heard was, I thought, well, I'll buy 2 just in case, right? All I heard was, Laurie, you only need 1. And the last thing they did at that workshop, it was 100 drums. I won the only bought one because all I heard, I was going to buy two, and all I heard was you only need one. And I'm like, fine, learn to listen. It was only $10.
You need one ticket and I need the ticket.
Yeah, it was cute. Okay, so now I've got it tied, right? And what I've done here is I've tied a very loose knot. And so the only reason I'm doing that is it's a placeholder. So now, right? Now I'm going to go around. This is the second time, so second out of 4. So what I'm doing this time is I'm just evening out the circle a little bit. And if there's a bunch of twists in here, I'm going to even that out. So I like to just pull it, maybe tighten it up a little bit, right? Start to lift it. And, you know, one side of this lacing is rough and the other side's smooth. So I'm a little bit, I like to say anal retentive, but OCD works too, right? I like everything perfect, but not everything's perfect. So I like the smooth on one side and then rough when I'm coming back over. So you have to pay attention when you're doing that. How is that working? And always make either smooth or rough on the outside of the drum where the lace is. It's up to you. But whatever you do, do your best to be consistent. And so then I'm pulling it again. Oh, that's supposed to be like that. So I like either rough coming up over there and then folding it over and it's smooth. Completely up to you, whatever you want to do, whatever feels right for you. But I'm starting to pull it tight. So I'm pulling this. See, it started to pull it up a little bit. So that's my goal in round 2 is to pull it up a little bit. Cinch it up just slightly. And then I'm holding it. I like to just hold it on the frame there. And then I can set this again. So my goal again on the inside is just to start evening this out all the way around. And then on the outside to pull that, like you can see how much lacing is getting pulled. By the time we're done here, there's going to be a lot of lacing left, which is good because we'll need it for the handle of the drum. So this is just about straightening out. Number 2, it's like second day, right? Second day is like, you know, of the just moving into the spirit world in the Sundance. If you're, you know, dancing, right? You know, and it's because you get no food or water for 4 days. So day 1 is just like opening it up. There we're in the energies of it. Lots of good healing can happen. Not really working. It's a bit tough, eh? So there we are. And just to make sure when we're doing this that everything is even. The hide's being pulled up in an even way. The center hoop is even. And there can be a lot of twists in this at the end, right? That's why I say when you're first doing it, you know, I wouldn't worry about it too much, but, you know, really watch your twists. If it's really twisty, it can be really tough to straighten all out, right? However, even if you do your best, sometimes it still wants to twist a whole bunch, which is good. It is what it is, but it's like, how are you working with that energy of everything twisting? Are you getting frustrated? If you are, well, now you know how to clear your frustration. And so again, I'm looking and I'm making sure that this is centered, right? And then I'm pulling this up and making sure the right side is up. And again, back in. Notice how all of these are in the right spot, right? It's starting to even out really nicely. And it's tightened up a little bit here, not too much, but a little bit. And then I hold it. So I'm not pulling on it. I hold it right here with my thumb so that I'm not pulling on this and then pulling everything tight and having to straighten everything out again. I'm keeping it nice and even. And patience is the best. People get impatient. Sometimes they break their strings, pull it too tight, you know, and you want to really do your best to avoid that. So if that's starting to happen to you, if you're starting to feel emotional when you're working all this, especially confusion in the first round, because everything can be everywhere. So it's just best to just stop for a minute and like notice what you notice and then clear your emotions. Because if you continue on and you're all frustrated, you know, you're creating something here that's, you know, a good healing tool for you, and you'll have all that frustrating energy in your drum, and you want to avoid that. So always good to be in a good place when you're creating. Doesn't matter if it's a drum or anything. Always good to check your emotions. I got a lot of dogs here. That's why I was like kind of wondering how it's going to be doing the workshop, and they're actually quite cooperative with us today. A little bit when we were in the forest. We got some pretty vocal little guys. But you know, again, it's like, are we going to get impatient with them? They're just doing their thing. Okay, and you can see it's starting to get real twisty, but that's okay. It makes it a little bit difficult, but that's all right. We're just straightening everything out. We're about a little over halfway. So once we untie it, then we can straighten that all out again. And then the third round will be a whole lot easier for us to work because we're just cinching it up a bit. We'll still find that we're a little bit twisted, but not like what we are. And just be patient with it. It's all perfect. It's all good. There's no rush for anything. Yeah, so if you're making this drum at home, and you got the kits that I sent out, it's really good if you're, you know, if you're in a climate where it's dry. If you need to, you can just take some water and wet everything down again. I might have to do that myself in a little bit. But just lots of patience is the best. We'll be tying. So this particular drum and the drums we're making today is all made with lace, but we're also going to be, I have colored cord and I'll be tying it with that. And there'll be ones that I make that I'll have dream catchers in the back. I'll have extra cord for that. So you can kind of choose which one you want to make. And so I'll have different kits for all of that. But today, this is our first one that we're putting out. So I just wanted to make it like I normally make most of my drums. But it can be fun. I've made some really nice ones with dream catchers in the back and tied different ways. Like if you were going to be in a moist place, there's a certain drum that you can tie the way you can tie it. So it doesn't matter how moist it is. I can take it to a sweat lodge and go all the way through the lodge with it, and it'll still be nice and tight. Where some drums, once they get a lot of moisture on them, they're kind of finished. They'll go flat, and then they have to get out where it's warm again. So this one here, even though I did my best to make sure it wasn't twisty, it's very twisty. So you just never know. You think you got a plan, and yeah. So I obviously needed to demo what can happen and how twisty things can get so that you guys can see, like, you know, it happens to the best of you. Even to myself, I've made like hundreds of drums, things can still get all caught up, and it's good. It's just, how are you handling all of that? But I am going to be happy when we get to the end and I can straighten this all out. And then the next ones to come will be super easy. This is the hardest part of the making of the drum, is what I'm doing right here, the first and second round, because you're working with getting it all laced up, and then you're working with the twists and getting that all done. Other than that, you'll notice the next time I do a round how much easier it is. And notice how it's starting to become like a nice circle right now. And the hide is pretty even all the way around. Just keep making sure of that, because sometimes we get caught up in it and we think, oh, you know, we're going to keep going and keep going. And then we find out that our hide is way off. And then we have to loosen everything up and fix all that. It's very, see all this? So if you get some of that, it's just like, be patient. It can be easy to get all frustrated because everything's all knotted up, but just be patient. You know, if you need to, like, wet your lacing down again, if you're doing lacing like this. But the best thing is just to be patient. And you need pretty strong hands. I've made so many drums, my fingers are a little bit sore. So I'm like, I'm not making drums anymore. And now I laugh here, I'm making drums. And I work in the drum workshop, and I end up, you know, pulling people's drums tight because they can't do it themselves. So it's like my big plan of not tying any more drums. Like I like to tell people, right? If you got a plan, you know, just tell God and he can laugh about that, right? Because there's always a different way. And it's how can you go with the flow? Are you good with going with the flow? Or do you have to have it a certain way? And if you don't get it that way, do you get frustrated, impatient? Like, what comes up for you? And then you can just use emotional alchemy and clear it in any moment, right? You know, you'll get so good at this, somebody will come along and trigger you. And then right away, what happens is you can breathe, step back from it rather than engage and react. Just step back from it and, you know, take a breath, clear your emotions, and then go back in and engage again. And you'll see that everything's different. And you'll help that other person, or you'll help yourself with whatever it is that you're doing. Yeah, I managed to get it really naughty, which is like highly unusual for me. So obviously I needed to demonstrate just how to be patient with all of that. There, coming to the end. Yay. Woo-hoo! Thank goodness. Because now I get to undo this, right? And I get to pull this all straight because it's pretty twisted. But now my drum is in a good way. So my drum's not all twisted up anymore. And what I can do, because this is dried out, because it's twisted so much, it's like leaking it all out. Just put a little bit more water on it. And we're back again. It's got some elasticity in it. And so then once I've done that, I want to tie a nice little loose knot again. Just very loose, because it's just holding it in place. And again, I'm holding on to this. I don't want to lose that, even though I don't really need to use it. I still don't want it falling all over the place. So now this, I'm pulling this up tight here, and then I'm pulling this to where I want it. I think it's going to be even right there, probably a little tighter. So every time I go around, now my goal on round 3 is to pull it tight to the rim without pulling on it, and pull it nice and even here. So right here, you can see it's coming right to the frame, and I'm pulling it tight, but not really, really tight. That's round 4 is the snug up on everything. And you'll see that I'm still got some twists in it, which is okay. It's not going to be like my last time. And so while I'm snugging this up, you'll notice that I always have my thumb on here. Because if you don't, then everything is everywhere. And you'll see once you start tying your own drum, you'll see what happens.
The circle, it has to be like straight, or it can be twisted,
What's that?
the circle.
It's however you want. It doesn't matter to me, the center so much. And you might find that it starts to shift itself and not twist, right? I don't worry too much about the center one.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Somebody else gets to be the cat door person. And so again, it's just lots of patience. If you're twisted, no problem. I like to make sure that I'm coming down smooth on this side. So I like to make sure that when it's on the outside of the drum, this little bit is nice and smooth on the outside.
You want to show that a little bit?
Yeah. See the skin? It can be nice and.
Hang on. Pay attention.
Okay.
See, there you go.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
So right here, it's smooth, right? So the rough side is the inside of the deer, right? The smooth side is the outside. So it's just where the lace went into the 2 holes. So then what I'm doing is I'm holding it with this, just with my thumb, so that I don't lose it, right? And then once I have this nice and smooth on this side, I can bring it up and over, and I can let it go, because just by it being in the hole there, that is holding it. The lacing's holding it. But notice everything is up against the frame, and then my circle's really getting round, really getting nice. It's not all over the place. That's my goal of round 3. And so I've got some twists, but nothing like it was before. All of this stuff, when you start tying your drum, you'll understand, right? And you'll have a recording of this, so you'll be able to see, okay, that's what I meant by that. You can just rewind it and play it. Figure it out. And I'm doing this really quick because I've tied so many drums. You're going to be probably a lot slower at this, might take you a couple hours, but there is no rush. And just know that I've tied lots of drums over the years. I've been doing this since 1996. So you can imagine, taught lots of classes, made lots of drums. I'd make like 6, right? You know, and go to sell them, and I'd sell some, and then I'd end up keeping some, and then I'd end up giving some away. And all the big plans of, you know, selling them and making some cash never ever works out because, you know, God's got, our creator has got his own way of what he wants with where the drum's going. So I just follow along with whatever it's supposed to be. Yeah, 1996, making a drum was my first spiritual thing that I did. And it kind of chuckle because that was quite a while ago, and here I am still doing it. And I love it. I think this is one of the best things that people can do is like make their own drum. Probably why I'm still doing it after all these years. And you'll notice, see how nice that looks? Nice and even. And if yours doesn't look that nice and it's off a little bit, it's okay, right? You know, there's no good, bad, right, or wrong, no frustration. Because I've seen some interesting looking drums. You know, the only thing that's important is that the drum is tight enough so that it sounds good. And one of the things is like if you make it in a certain climate and then you go to another climate and the climate is really moist and your drum is like flat, what you can do is warm it just a little bit with your hand or put it in the sun. Some people like to warm it in front of a fire, but what happens is you're drying your drum out and then they snap. I've seen lots of drums pop at a sweat lodge fire. And then if it's too tight, right? You know, you take it up, like if I made this drum here and took it up to the interior, it might get really tight and sound more like a ting, ting, ting instead of like nice vibration. And so all you do then is you just get a damp cloth and put it on the surface of the drum, dampen it down. And you know what? It will loosen it off enough so that it sounds nice. So here we are back to the center again. And I'm going to loosen that off and tie another knot. We're almost there. So that's the only time I drop that. And it's not a big long one, so I don't have to run for it. So now what my goal is, you can kind of see it's starting to look good. It's tight, but it's not too tight. And the nice thing about these kinds of skins, when you're using a goat skin and making like a djembe, it's all kind of usually one thickness and it's got one sound. With this, sometimes there's a thicker hide here and thinner over here, so you'll get all these different tones. So now my goal is I'm going to put this down, and my goal is I want to cinch this up really good. So I'm going to pull this in just a little bit more and hold it with my thumb. This is super important. I'm just pinching it, but I want to be able to lift this up. This is round 4. So I want to be able to lift it up and then pull. So I'm pulling up and I'm pushing down at the same time. But you'll notice I'm on the edge of here. I'm not reefing on this, because if you pull on this, chances are you may snap it. So I want it super even here now. So I'm going and I'm pinching here again, pulling it through that part right here. And now I'm tightening up the surface of the drum, the hide. And again, I'm coming back so that I'm nice and even here, pinching it off and pulling this through and then up. All even. See how much is thicker over here? And then now we're thin over here. We want to make sure this is our last round. We want this to look good. And so we're going to pull that tight. This is where you got to make sure that the holes, like I make sure where they're punching, but if you've got your own thing and you're making it, you want to make sure that there's enough room from the edge of the hide into where the holes go, that you're not snapping and ripping the holes out, because then you'll have to punch another hole. So here I am. It's getting longer now, my piece, so I'll show you what I'm doing next. But here, I'm still pinching this off, and you want to make sure that this is even and going down into this hole. If you have this and it's way over here, you'll be able to see that once that ties up, once I correct it, now it's going to loosen up. So I don't want that. I want to make sure it's heading like a triangle to the next hole. And then I just pull on this. And because it's a deer, you don't have to really reef, because if you reef too much, what's happening is you're going to make your drum super tight.
What is reef?
Reef means pull really hard, which lots of people do. And so I'm starting to pull. You can see I'm not just pulling up on this one side. I'm pulling this down first and then pulling it through. And now I'm going to hold on to here again and pull up at the same time. And then as soon as I pulled up where I wanted it, I moved my thumb from this place to this place. It's all about the thumbs and what I'm doing. So I'm going to leave that for a second. Straighten out the fire. Okay, so I'm going to move again. I'm going to tighten that up a little bit. And then again, I'm going to pull it down so it's even right there. And then I have to loosen it off from here because there's too much now. See how much is actually left? So I've got that, and now I want to pull this through here. Like, it's surprising the amount of cord that's left in the end. So I want to pinch this and kind of push down, but pull up at the same time, so I'm not I'm not pushing down in here so that the skin can't tighten. So when you're doing the last round, the skin has to be off of the table so that you can pull it evenly. And then pulling it up, holding that cinched, and then as soon as I've got it, I let go and move my thumb to hold that. And then I can pull this down. And look at how nice and simple that is. I'm just going to pull this just a little bit tighter. Last one. Always wanting to make sure that this is nice and even. And then pulling it down to the side here. I could pull on it, but it's easier on my fingers just to do it the other way. And so I can lift up and pull down. We're getting just over halfway now. So lifting up. And if it's not enough, then just go back and pull it a little bit tighter. No big deal. You want to make sure this last round that everything's nice and even. See how good it looks and see how easy it is to tighten it up. And again, it's too much to pull and you make your fingers sore. So it's always good to pull it up from the other side. And then it can be all loose. Who cares? But I've got it cinched here. So now I want to pull up on the skin, taking it off of the table a little bit. And always with the triangle, making sure I'm going down to the next set of holes, making sure everything's a nice triangle.
Nice thick lace.
Ah, I like it. Yeah, after our last workshop, Mark, I'm like, I'm making my own lace next time. And it works much better. It's a little bit harder on the hands to do, but you know what? I enjoy it because I know when I go to make a drum that anybody anywhere can make that drum and the lace won't break. Nothing worse than when you're making a drum and then the lace snaps, right? And there's patience and tricks to that as well, right? So some people think, oh, they see a drum and they think they can make it. And it's like, everything's easy, right? It's kind of like tattooing, right? It's like, oh, it's easy to put one on, but what are you going to do when there's a mistake? That's when the real tattoo artist and the real drum maker, it's like, how can you fix it? If you can fix it, then who cares if you make mistakes, right? If you can't fix it, then there's a problem.
Well, mistakes, I believe, are a privilege for the active, and they are only really learning opportunities. There are no such things as a mistake unless you don't learn from it.
Yeah.
And you keep repeating it.
Yeah.
Then it's a mistake.
Yeah, and it's really bad when it's a tattoo.
Yeah, that's a different story. That's like permanent.
Yeah, whip it good. I remember this guy when I was first starting, when I was tattooing, I started in 96 as well, right? And this one guy bought a tattoo shop and he thought he could tattoo. So he's doing the thing and he's putting the color in, but he's going in a little circle and pretty soon he's whipped the skin into what looks like an ice cream cone. There's no going back from that, dude. That's why I like to use, tattooing as an example, because it's like if you make a mistake, and believe me, I've seen even the best of them make mistakes, right? It's, can you fix it? I know this one guy, I won't name names, right? But he was a very well-known tattoo artist. And he was doing this big tattoo on a guy's back. And it was a motorcycle riding out from the bottom of the back. And then I went to look at it, right? And it was like, you could tell his face. He used to like to tattoo his face in the thing. And he's got a Japanese swirl with this face coming out and blowing wind at the front wheel of the motorcycle, right? And I look at it and I laughed and I'm like, and then he told the story of how he had put it on backwards. He made the stencil backwards. So as a motorcycle guy, it wasn't a good thing that he had it on backwards. And so his way of fixing it had to do the stencil again. And his way of fixing it and doing stuff was like, there's his face. He almost blew it with the wind. And yet he managed to save it. Yeah, great tattoo artist. Not around anymore. Not an easy life, that life. I'm happy not to be doing it anymore. Many years of it, 30 years. And people, every time I go to put my tattoo stuff away, people are like, oh, can you do a tattoo for me? And I'm just like, oh, I don't really want to. And then I say, oh, I'll do it. And then after they leave, I'm like, no, I won't. They can go find somebody else. So there we are. Drum is done. So you can already feel it. You can hear it, right? And I can't push on it too much. And that's what I want. I want a little bit of push down, but not much.
Can I ask you to go back to where you tied that knot, please?
So here I am. I tied the knot. This knot I'm keeping, right? So all the other ones are loose, so I can take it apart every time. And so now I'm just going to tie that knot really tight, right? And look how even that circle is. It's maybe just a little bit off, but who cares? Could you hand me the scissors, please? My lovely assistant, camera guy, techie guy, promoter guy. He's the best. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, I'm just gonna stick that back in there for a second.
Before you go, can you recap everything you did?
Yeah, one moment. So basically round one, we're getting everything nice and centered, right? Round one, put that on there, keep the drum centered, have the circle in the center, and then round one is just get it all nice and loose and laced. Round 2 is straightening out all the twists and turns. Round 3 is snugging everything up, especially to the outside of the drum here. And then, you know, this a bit, right? And then round 4, you notice we took it in another 1/2 inch or so, and we tightened this frame really tight. And now we're going to go on to making the handle. You're welcome. The quick recap. Yeah, well, because now we have to hold on to it. This part is really quick and it's fun. So what we're going to do, just so we don't have a bunch of knots everywhere, you'll notice there's a knot there. I like to go there. So we're going to go into there and we want to go across. So there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And on the 8th one, we take it and we go across. And then what you want to do, I like to go into the V's, because if you go anywhere in between the V's, you pull the circle off. So then I tie it in the center, right? Pretty tight, but you know, not super tight. Because we're going to tighten it up in a minute. So there, now we have that, and it looks like that, and we want to have it right in the center. And you want to make sure it's tight. And so for this one, then we can cut these little pieces a little bit. Only on this one. When we do the next one, not. So then we want to go square, right? So then this is where it's nice, where all the V's are in the right position. So now we want to go 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to go from the bottom up, right? And now we're going to go across the top of this. We're not going to go underneath or through or anything fancy like that, right? And again, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 from there. And you want to pull it fairly tight, like right in here. The reason I'm saying that is because you don't need a whole bunch of this extra and then you're going to cut it off when you could use it for the God's eye, which we'll get to in a second. So notice how I'm on top of these other strings. I'm not through one or anything like that. They're two separate things. We got this one and we got this one. And once I tighten this up, then I'm not going to be pushing and pulling on these strings, because the more you push and pull, the more you stretch it out. So I'm stretching it out by pulling on this, right? So if I start pushing these up and down, then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stretch it out. So then we go on the bottom ones and we go in the center, in between these two, the whole center string, and we're going to rotate with the fancy chopsticks. You can use pencils, you can use popsicle sticks, you can use whatever you want. If you're buying a kit from me, I will have the chopsticks already in there, so you don't have to go looking for anything. So there I am. It's pretty nice and tight. So now I want to put it like that so that it stays there, right?
So you twist one side and it will twist both sides.
Yeah, you just move it up so it'll twist both sides. That's a good question, because now I'm going to start twisting this side, and because we have that knot there and all of this on there, we're going to have to do some fancy stuff. So I like to go like this.
You just got the first one by now.
I cut the first one, but not the second one, because the second one we're going to use, and just so I don't have a bunch of stuff twisting around, right? We're going to keep that for the God's eye. So the next, I always go on the side that's down, because this, then I'm not working through this upside. So I want to put it in between there and I want to start twisting. So what I do is I go like this, 1, 2, about 3 twists, right? And now I have to make sure that I do this, right? Otherwise I'm going to have that all twisted up. So I twisted it 3 times. And so now I'm twisting this 3 times so that that can twist. And so then I can go 1, 2, 3 more times, right? Because now I'm going to twist this 3 more times. And as I twist that, I'm pulling that, right? Pulling it around. didn't work out so well. Anyways, there we are. They're two pretty tight. I can loosen this off now. Okay, so what I want to do now is I've got this on here and it's attached to the top one, right? Cut that if you don't have a sharp, you want like a needle point. And sometimes you can use another chopstick and push it through. But I've got this and I'm going to push it through and then pull it. So you take it from the one that's attached and then pull that over. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to go over through this other one. Sometimes you wind them pretty tight and it's hard to get something in there. But just keep pushing. You can get it. And what you want to do before you take anything out is you want to make sure they're through the both of them and tight. And so they might unwind a little bit, but not much. And so now what we want to do is we're going to start making our God's eye. And the first part of this God's eye, right, we're going to do in the center. So what we're attempting to do here, depends on how big your knot is and what you've done. The object of this is to keep this all centered, right?
Can you show into the camera, please, how you're
Tying.
tying that?
Okay, let me just get on the other side of this. So we're making a God's eye, right? So we want to just go over. Hard to get it. Okay, right there.
Got it.
Okay, so we're going over this and then under. So again, over and under, right? And then over and under, over here.
How many times do you do that?
You just keep doing it till you run out of, or you have it big enough, because what it is, so it's all about over and under. And as we go over and under, we're moving out just a little bit. This is going to be our handle. So we're moving it over and under. And see how it starts to look like we got a little eye in the center. We got lots of lace. Sometimes we run out of lace. We only have this little handle. That's why I'm like to have lots of lace. That was a nice one. This is a smaller bit of, because it's a smaller drum. So it's a smaller bit of lace, but there's still lots on there, which I did a good calculation because we'll be using the exact amount. And notice how that's starting to look.
Show that.
Yeah, I'll show it right now. So you can see from here how it's starting to look, right? It's kind of like, you know, what we did when we were kids, right, in school. And see how that is? It's going to be a really nice God's eye. So I used a different piece of lacing that wasn't part of this lacing, but I noticed that I could stop at any time and I could have used this for the center. So just know that if you're buying one of the kits that I'm making, there is enough lace, no matter how it looks when you do the first round. Just know that it'll be okay. There's lots there. By the time you get it all cinched up, you'll probably even have it left over. And so we just want to keep going around. So it's over, under, over, under. And there we go. So that's that. And then, because we have to tuck this away somewhere, it's like I just like to go over and then stick it through the rawhide. Stick it through with one of the twists. So I have that there. Or I could just go around and then bring it back up through one of the twists from the bottom so everything looks nice and even. Those wolves are at it again. They're like, what are you doing? We should be outside by now. And so you'll have this little tail there, and you know, you can cut it now. I'm going to cut it a little bit shorter. Right? And it'll stay. And there you have it. And so the best thing to do now is not to hold on to it by here. What you want to do, if it's cold outside, you want to wrap it in something to take it home and then put it in a place that's not, the heat's not blowing on it, or it's in the sun. Some people like to do that. I don't like to do that. I just like to lean it up against the wall where it's warm, and then just let it dry like this, because you want to be able to, you know, lean it like that and get the air going in the back so everything dries nice and easy. And if you'll see that the outside edge, you'll notice that everything's pretty even. There's parts here I wasn't so good at cutting it perfectly round, but it's all pretty even, and that's what we want. And if yours is off just a little bit, that's okay too. Sometimes maybe you're off just a little bit, and go look at the emotions. That if you find any emotions about what you're doing, then go look at those emotions and clear them. So thank you so much. Thank you for the girls that are here with their patience. They got to see the whole thing or not, but I will be guiding you through everything. So good job. I really want to know, Mahada, how you guys made out with this. So I'm going to get Mark to send you the link. So you can unmute so I can talk for a second.
Aloha.
Hi.
Aloha. So how was it?
I look forward to getting the video. I've been watching, but so far we've just cut, for me, I've just cut lacing.
Yeah.
Perfect. So you're
We're
going to
at the
have
beginning.
what's that?
We're at the beginning.
But that's great, right? You know, you're going to have the recording, so now you can make it, right? Just make
Yeah.
sure that you're soaking everything so everything's nice and loose. Good. Please
Thank
let me
you
know how
so
it worked out.
much.
When will
Yeah.
the recording come out?
What's that?
When will you send the recording?
I don't know. Not long.
Yeah. Shortly.
Okay.
Does that
That
work?
looks beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. It's going to be part of the gift,
Beautiful.
but we won't be demoing that right now. So thank you so much. Please let me know how your drums turned out.
We will.
We'll take pictures.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shanda, how was that? Did you learn lots?
I did. I made lots of notes.
Good, good. Well, I look forward to you coming over or joining us
Yes.
on the weekend.
I can't wait for our whole family to come over and we'll make drums as a family with you.
Oh, that would be awesome. I would look forward to that.
Mhm.
Good, good. Thank you so much. Anything else you want to share?
No, I love this. It was beautiful, and I'm grateful to have this space and container, and it was amazing.
Thank you. And so you'll notice, right? There's the face of it. Hard to see because you can see the handle in the back. But if I move it like this, you'll notice that it's got some markings on it and stuff. As it dries, pictures will come out. And then even after years, other pictures will come in there. Or made it to the paint because I like the pictures that come out. Like I had one drum, I took the skin over took the drum over there to Malaysia and it snapped. So I finally took it apart, took the skin off, never put it back together. And finally one day I'm like, I'm going to put that back together. And I put it back together, and I knew when I was putting it together, I put it on a bigger hoop, that it wasn't for me. And then somebody calls, and it was from my horse training. They wanted it for women's archery. So they ride on the back, and the drum keeps the beat as they're riding on the back of the horses, shooting at the archery or at the targets. I'm like, well, that, and a white buffalo was coming out in the drum. It was pretty wild. But you know, every drum has its place. Every skin has its place. So thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to meeting you in person, Shanda, and I look forward to seeing your drums, Mahada and Haley. All right. Aloha. There's the wolves. All right. Thank you so much.